All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Reagan Ebler, and I'm one of the co-presidents for the Colorado State University student chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects. I'm so excited to welcome you all to our last day of our 28th annual Landscape Architecture Days lecture series. And before we begin, I would like to give a sincere thanks to our donors, including ASCSU, the Department of Horticulture and Landscape Architecture, CSU's College of Agricultural Sciences Ag Council, and the Colorado chapter of ASLA. For it's because of their support that we are able to put this lecture series on for you all. Today we have the honor of being joined by Chris Grubbs, and at the end of his presentation, we'll be conducting a Q&A with him. So if you have any questions throughout his presentation, please put them in the Q&A section of this meeting, and feel free to use the chat feature to introduce yourselves within the audience. We'd love to know who you are and where you're joining us from today. Lastly, I would like to give a huge thank you to our faculty advisor, Kelly Curl. She has done so much to support our chapter of ASLA and to ensure that we were able to host the LA Days lecture series this year despite these unprecedented times. The members of SCASLA and LA students as a whole truly appreciate everything you've done for us this year.
Thank you so much, Reagan. I would also like to thank SCASLA and all of our speakers of the LA Days Spring Series this season, and certainly all of the attendees that have joined us from all around the world this spring. It has certainly been a really exciting and delightful experience for everyone, I hope. So next, our student, Catherine Kaiser, a sophomore landscape architecture student and also a SCASLA member, will be introducing our next speaker.
Thank you, Professor Curl. I will now introduce tonight's speaker, Mr. Chris Grubbs. Mr. Grubbs has been formally trained as an architect, but is widely known for being an illustrator. His love of drawing the world around him, as well as the imagined world, has led him many places across the United States and internationally. Mr. Grubbs' ability spans far beyond just illustration. He has been a part of many design teams over the last 30 years and has been honored with many prestigious awards for his designs. In 2005, Mr. Grubbs received both the Hughes Ferris Memorial Prize in addition to the American Society of Architectural Illustrators' highest honors. In 2006, through a series of charcoal illustration studies, he shared the post-Hurricane Katrina environmental story of the city of New Orleans. Those studies are now a part of his archive of over 3,000 drawings at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. Once again, we are very honored and excited to have Mr. Chris Grubbs speak tonight for our last LA Days lecture series at Colorado State University. And without any further ado, Mr. Grubbs, you have the floor. Mr. Grubbs, you are muted.
Chris, sorry, I muted you.
Yep.
There you go. Thank you, Chris.
I love technology. Yeah. Well, thank you all very much. Coming to you from Savannah, Georgia, where the light that's facing east, you can almost see the Atlantic Ocean. The night will fall during the course of my lecture. I just wanted to thank you all very much. Certainly Kelly and Reagan and Gibson and Sam and Catherine and everybody who's made this wonderful series of lectures possible. It's not easy to do. And I'm a sort of a dinosaur technologically, so your help has been made it all possible, actually. So I wanted to thank the speakers. I'm the last of the group that's talking to you this year. Kona, Sierra, Lori, Andrea, April, Thomas, Lane. I learned a lot from every lecture that I heard. I also enjoyed the Q&A very much, as I was saying to Kelly. So try to keep this within the 1 hour range, but I got a lot to say, so don't go to the refrigerator right now and come back because you're going to miss something. So these lecturers are all landscape architects. I'm the only non-landscape architect in the project. I'm sort of I'm an illustrator. I'm a piano player in somebody else's saloon. So I've wandered around to see how things are done by this office, that office. I've also sort of motivated myself to sort of discover the world along with you guys as well. So let me see. I think that I'm done with the introductions. Let me go to the first slide. And there we go. So take a look at this stone. It's on a beach in Oregon. It's low light. The sun's about to set. The stone is on about 1/8 of an inch of water, so that the reflection of the water sort of kills the shadow that the stone makes. The water also amplifies the reflected light on the back side of the stone. It's a kind of a miracle to look at. All you need to do to find miracles like this, and a lot of the world, let's face it, is kind of boring, but keep your eye out for the miracles, okay? I remember Thomas Woltz saying in the Q&A that he asked students to approach the landscape with grace. And that struck me, and I wrote it down immediately. And Thomas, if you're listening, or if you hear this later, I apologize for lifting this line from you, because it really meant something to me. And as we're not dealing with grace over the last several years, I had to go look at the definition, and there are many, but the words that are synonymous with grace in the landscape are love, kindness, and I'm adding understanding, because understanding means observing, and that's what I'm all about. Closely observe the world as designers, and take notes. Okay, this is the tall guy standing is my grandfather, Claude Hansen, my maternal grandfather. He was about your age as students go in 1915 when this photograph was taken. He was quite a guy. He was an artist in spirit, and I got a lot of what I got from him. He entertained his fellow miners by carving coal, Lincoln's head out of coal. He was a cavalry soldier. He was sheriff of Montgomery County, Kansas. He was a carpenter. He led a full life, but he put his vacation off to later. And finally, he went on a vacation to Colorado with his family, and he died of a heart attack in Fort Collins. So this is the wraparound of this slide. The moral of this story is, whatever you're doing, do it now. You may, at your early age, think that you're immortal, or guess that you're immortal, but you're not. Be COVID safe, because COVID is still out there, and the light that we're seeing at the end of the tunnel might be a freight train coming at us. Okay, so be safe. Let's see. This is a quote by Hermann Hesse, won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1947 by writing very deep and obscure and great books and throwing away lines like this. The moral is that whatever you do, make your tail wag, okay? And if it's not wagging, go on to something else that makes you happy. And I'm going to another line here. When work is fun, it is more fun than fun. This is my little story about drawing as a 3-year-old and thinking that my subject matter being architecture and landscapes, that I really wanted to be an architect or a city planner. I got a degree from Washington University, a master's after 6 years in architecture, and within 9 months, I hated it. So work was not much fun, and so I gravitated to illustration. This is the work of Naomi Berwick-Backer. She, at the time, was 3.5 years old, and she was telling herself a story. Her parents asked, "Who is this?" And she said in so many words, "A guy who can fly." Now, this is why designers draw, to tell stories to themselves and then to others. People have been drawing for up till now, as we know it, 40,000 years. These are the Lascaux caves, 18 years past. And we don't know why they were drawn. They were telling a story, though, to themselves, possibly to others, but they were telling a story. Drawing still tells stories to this day. These safety folders don't have words, so that you can tell by the image what's going on and what you should do in case of a water landing or such things like that. I want to talk to you about drawings. For the sake of the argument, this is a drawing. It is a bad drawing. It looks good. It is a digital image, and I will tell you why. Blaine Merker last time talked about landscape architects being aware of their vision, their cone of vision. He said 72 degrees. The real heart of it, the foveal range, is a little less than that, but this illustrator used 2 angles of vision together. It's kind of cinerama. And what happens is that the arch is on a east-west axis. The Eads Bridge is on an east-west axis, but it's so spread out that the perspective is just, let's just say, distorted. To show everything they wanted to show, they distorted the image. The meat of the project, the point, is too small to see, and it's upstaged by the Hello Kitty parade on the bridge. And my favorite is this lady in the foreground for some reason. She's dangling about 100 feet above the Mississippi River. So it is a bad drawing. This looks like a bad drawing, but it's not a bad drawing in that it carries a load of information. The architect over the phone said, I want a bridge, and I want trees and wildlife. But by sending me this fax, and this is an old drawing, he confirmed in my mind what he wanted me to do. So it's not a bad drawing. This is a great drawing. It's by Leonardo da Vinci, the copse of birches, drawn in charcoal about 1500. And I want you to imagine that this stand of trees is on the CSU oval on campus. And imagine somebody walking left to right between you and the trees, and the guy is texting. His face is in his camera. He's going left to right. He has no awareness of what his environment is around him. The next person walks right to left. She's got a camera, and she says, "Oh, this looks nice." She takes a picture, records it, and all bets are that she'll never look at it again. So if Leonardo da Vinci was alive today, he would sit, find a comfortable place. I don't think he would stand, but he would sit and look and look and look and then draw. He's bringing his grace to the landscape. You know, he is famous for his water motion images, you know, how water moves through a stream. This is a tree. Oops, sorry, I'm going backwards. Got it. Sorry, folks, for technical problems here. He's drawing trees in motion. He's looking incredibly closely. You know, there are very few indications of actual individual leaves, but it's all horizontal lines. So he's really kind of listening to what the trees are saying and acting explicitly as a stenographer. And since Leonardo da Vinci is most sincerely dead, you guys have to be Leonardo da Vinci. You need to look at a stand of trees with the same explicit focus as he did. It's not easy. You may never be as good as Leonardo da Vinci, but you've got to make the effort. This is a YouTube link to a song by Handel. He wrote the opera Circe in 1738 when George Washington was 6 years old about. The opera opens with one aria, and it's a love song. It's one of the most beautiful love songs ever written. Mezzo-sopranos, tenors, countertenors love to sing this song, and I will, you can thank me later, but I'm not going to sing it for you. He's not singing to his beloved Persia, because this is Xerxes the First. He's singing his love out, not to his country, not to the queen, not to a prince for that matter. He's singing to a tree. He's singing to a plane tree, which is kind of the first cousin of the sycamores on campus around the Oval. So I'm going to read the 4 lines. Never was a shade of any plant dearer and more lovely or more sweet. Tender and beautiful fronds of my beloved plane tree, let fate smile upon you. May thunder, lightning, and storms never disturb your dear peace, nor may you by blowing winds be profaned. Never was a shade of any plant dearer and more lovely or more sweet. So take a screenshot, look it up on YouTube. It is an artist's coming to terms with and bringing his love to the landscape. This is Bellini, Giovanni Bellini, 1476, thank you very much. And this is St. Francis in Ecstasy. I just want to take a look at some elements, because he's bringing his grace to the landscape as you, the landscape architect, should approach the landscape in your own practice. So this is St. Francis looking to the left towards God, and you see his foot, and there it is again in the landscape. You see his chest, and there it is again in the landscape. So Bellini takes natural landscapes and reinterprets it and interprets it through symbolic recalls and orientation and composition. He turns it into not just a landscape painting, but an environmental design in which man and nature become one. And this is precisely what you as landscape architects need to do. You're looking at the Grand Odalisque, 1814 by Ingres, with your subjective eyes. But if you turn her upside down, you're looking at her objectively, and you will see that her arm and the curtain are basically the same line. It's one. You see that the fan picks up this shape and the shape of her back. So what I mean to say about this is that, pardon me again. This is turning this image upside down, as I'm doing, reveals an otherwise invisible Zen-like organization in which all main objects are seen as being one, in quotes. This is precisely your goal as a landscape designer, to take landscape elements and give them a form that isn't natural, but as you would like to see it and as you would like to tell the story with it to other people. This is a drawing I did in Savannah. It's a colonial cemetery. They were trenching for electrical piping to put up new lampposts. I just thought it was an interesting situation talking about burial and reburial, unearthing and permanence, and being there for the long haul. If you turn it upside down, which I did, I realized there's a triangle going on. I thought it was going to be swirls around a central point, but the form of the drawing works around a triangle. Now, that's something that you might take closely to your heart. Take your own drawing, and when you're doing a drawing out on campus, there's a tree, there's a background, turn it upside down and you'll find that it's perfect. There is a form, or maybe the tree that you thought was of as the centerpiece is underdrawn, or it is just a blob, whereas you've spent more time on the background. Knowing the objective readout of an upside down drawing that you've done will allow you to bring the tree back to its prominence. And in your landscape plan, take your landscape plan and turn it upside down. You will see graphically what's been very much fussed over and made very explicit, and areas that are not really dealt with at all. The graphic image, it's very subjective as you look at it in the right way, but turning it upside down tells you stuff that you didn't quite realize was going on with what you're doing. Now, observing the world around you includes understanding that shadows aren't just black blotches on the ground. Sometimes they're not quite as you expect. Light usually informs and illuminates. Shadows sometimes can be more descriptive about what's being reflected than the light. A boogie board in Honolulu. Who knew that plastic could explode with color and brightness against a side-lit concrete wall? And look at, try to strive for finding significance in the ordinary. You know, this is a tire tread in a vineyard, but it looks kind of like placed by God in some ways. Now, this is in my drawing routine, so I'm going to be a little bit more articulate. I like to draw on anything. This is a Federal Express box. That's City Hall, San Francisco in the distance. I sent a series of postcards to Miss Guerin's third grade class. There's a lovely picture of Honolulu on the front, but I did boogie boards by the water for the kids. But usually what's best for me is to have a sketchbook with me. And I would advise people to please have a sketchbook nearby, make it as ubiquitous as your phone. Put it in a backpack, a man purse or lady purse. And when you get bored or have nothing to do, just pull it out and sketch away. Yeah, I did a drawing of a tulip. Someone asked earlier in the Q&A, a couple of lectures ago, in the era of COVID, what can I draw? And words to that effect. Well, draw something on your table, like a flower in a vase, or a bush in your front yard. I got my COVID shots, and they gave you a little timer for 15 minutes just to make sure that you're okay, and it would go off in 15 minutes. So I said to myself, oh, I've got 15 minutes to do a sketch. And this guy over there, I don't know when he showed up, so I don't know if I've got 15 minutes to draw him. So I drew, and came up with a drawing that I liked. At another doctor's office, I looked at the materiality of a trash can, chrome trash can with a plastic, black plastic insert. The reflectivity of black plastic is very much different from chrome. And also on a bus, if you're on a bus, wait at first while the bus is stopped so you can draw. Sometimes I would recommend that you draw when the bus is moving and see what you get. But this, this is pretty good drawing in the 30 seconds that it took me to do it. A passenger on another bus. And folks, when you're ever flying again, get a window seat and don't pull the shade down, because there's so much going on from 30,000 feet, 50 feet. There's just plenty of stuff that you don't usually see. In this case, it was some sort of strange phenomenon where, without a big cloud, a lot of rain was spilling out of it, and I got from the plane this rainbow. So I did a drawing, and then later I went back and did the background ocean. Again, being a stenographer to what the world is saying, these are several different types of plants in a Silomar on the Pacific coast. And all I needed to do was just dot, 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 stroke, stroke, stroke. And it built up a field of different plant types. If I did this again with more time, it would look different. But this was all I could do and what I wanted to do in a short time. A button salesman at the first inauguration for Obama. I drew the buttons first. I drew the outline of him first, and then later I filled in the black coat, hat, and shoes. This looks a little dated. That guy is wearing, I think, a mullet. This is 1980, 81, and the sheriff's deputy works on his drawing of the blue jay as Glory Lane denies any knowledge. She was a witness at a murder trial that my partner was the defense witness for, and I was stuck in a courtroom. So I decided just pull out a drawing and pull out a paper and a pen and do a drawing. Tuco the toucan accosted me in a hotel in Colombia. I said to myself, I hope he stays. I hope he stays. And he did, long enough for me to do a drawing. And you can see from the sketching here, the instruments that it's a small drawing. I took a photograph and drew the color in at a later date. I was stranded in India for 8 days, and I gridded my paper to do a little drawing for every day. Since I've gotten back, the mayor has allowed restaurants to lease parking spaces, and they're all going for AstroTurf. So I did a little study of AstroTurf dining. This is about editing. A drawing of a hillside near Griffith Park. I didn't want to draw the water tank. I was more interested in the landscape. So I didn't draw the water tank. You don't really need to do everything. Editorialize for yourself. And this is a drawing, a big one that I did from life. Notice it's a little tentative here and there. And the bottom line here is that I said, I'll keep the furtive original attempts to do a straight line or the line exactly where I want it and forget about it. So if you do a drawing, just do it. Don't wad it up if you don't think that the lines are where they ought to be. You'll be surprised that you can come up with a wonderful drawing even with those lines. 4 by 8 foot plywood on the side of the Conservatory of Flowers. That was the most interesting part of it. The conservatory is quite white, and the color was just great. And I'm interested mostly in things as they change, because once you draw something that is in change, you're never going to get it back again. So draw stuff that is in transition. A power box. There's nothing to say about this drawing. No reason why I picked it, except I just kind of like the composition. It's not really telling much of a story. Landscapes can be in the form of still lifes. They're still in the same realm of reality where light and shadow happen just as they would if these were 3 buildings, 3 yellow buildings. Figure drawing, I really love. They're like little landscapes, old and subject to gravity. And this is a memory drawing where I was on a storm-tossed ferry boat from Provincetown to Boston, where they had ambulances waiting to pick up the survivors. And this was the memory. I did the horizon line at an angle, because that's kind of how I remembered the world for 2 hours. This is Yellowstone, Old Faithful. I did a quick sketch of the 2.5-minute display of Old Faithful. Then it stopped, and 90 minutes later, it started again, and I waited. I waited 5, 6, 7 times throughout the night, just to make sure that I got the gestural and the gestural activity of this thing. This is from a friend of mine. I call him a civilian. He's Tomohiko Aono. He works at the SFO. He's not a landscape architect. He just likes to draw. And it's a wonderful drawing. My friend Tom Gastel is an illustrator for Nikken Seiki in Japan. And on vacation, he did this in a sketchbook. The color is done by Photoshop. I don't know exactly what that involves, but it's a way of doing sketching that I would not have imagined. My friend Barbara Ratner, illustrator, she took a 1-foot piece of paper and gridded it to include her dog and during her yoga lesson, which I really love this. His name is Petey. This is, I was at Leslie Lasky's kick-ass art camp in Manistee, Michigan several years ago. He's my best favorite teacher ever. He's turning 100 years young in July. This was at his studio in Michigan, and he's a little difficult, as I might say. People who know him will know exactly what I'm saying. For my assignment, he said, "Chris, you always draw very precisely and very carefully. Here is a 2-inch roller for oil and a larger than you're used to sheet. Now go draw something." And it turned out okay. Even the little roof line, I just took the edge of the roller and just did a little squeegee, precise little line as I'm used to doing. The moral of this one is I wasn't used to this material. It threw me for a loop. I went back to what I am comfortable with, which is fine. And I will tell you that when you're comfortable with your drawing and your materials, you'll be really happy that you kept going. If you're working with a hard pencil that feels like a nail on concrete, you don't want to draw. So find what feels sexy and comfortable and gives you the pleasure that you're seeking out of drawing. Flying into Christchurch, New Zealand, shelter belts. I did a series over 6 weeks. This is charcoal on paper, on a camp seat. And similarly, I went to New Orleans right after Katrina. I asked myself, what is a major American city looking like after it's been completely trashed? And this is what I found. I will say that work in the cool of the day or underneath a tree, otherwise you will die. And in this case, it was so Wild Westy in New Orleans in 2006 that I had to find locations where I could shout for help, just in case something bad happened. These are bathtub rings. It's one of my favorite drawings. The rings are on the glass as well as the walls. It's a kind of a trippy bathtub ring on layers of material. And for Page and Turnbull, I did drawings of historic Charleston. The assignment was to do several drawings of each of the designated historic neighborhoods. And for Peter Thau, I did studies for the village at the Grand Canyon. And this was a study of what parking was like in the village. I didn't do drawings of rocks or the Grand Canyon in the distance. It was just enough to do the drawing of the cars and the trucks. I want to talk a little bit about, let me pull my, and I do apologize for these little strange gaps. You don't need a good idea in order to do a drawing. You need to draw to get a good idea done. I was at a project, the client had consultants, I was one, and the golf consultant came in one morning and said, you know, I had a dream. This is a project in somewhere in the Middle East. He said, I had a dream. And it was bright and it was tall and right in the center of the town. So after a while, I left the room and I did this drawing. I added color later. I did not know what I was drawing. You don't have to. All ideas start out as the first vague gasp. They don't have to be perfect. They just need to tell you something. The client said, Chris, for the theme park, I want big water, big water. And he looked at his watch. I'm late for the golf course. I'll be back at 2. So give me big water. I didn't know what I was drawing, but this is big water. And big because the scale of the people are quite small, and water because it looks kind of like it's cascading in some way. I don't know how it's going to cascade. All we needed to do was get some idea down, and like the tower before, with that, you can work out the details later, but you don't need a big idea to start doing drawings. It's the opposite way of doing it. This is a gigantic rock garden in the same theme park, lit by night. I didn't know. I just drew it so it would kind of look like it was glowing. Was that a good idea? I don't know. These other little ideas were sketches. Are they good ideas? I don't know. But getting them out of your head tells you that it's a good idea, it's not a good idea, and maybe it's a good idea. But at least it's out of your head, and you can go on to design more and to a greater extent. This is an important situation here, and this is relevant to you guys in working for a client. This was Tianjin, China. Skidmore, Owings and Merrill had me go over there with them. We had a teleconference, and they said, Chris, go out and look at this neighborhood and come back and tell me what you saw. I'm going to say this is a picture's worth 1,000 word segment. So I said, without showing them this picture, I said, hey, by the park, there's a canal, and it's got wonderful old European buildings, and it's kind of wonderful, and blah, blah, blah. That's 1,000 words. And then they said, well, yeah, Chris, that's great. Now let's go to page 3, section 2. And I thought, I'm a little angry. So I took this photograph, which was in the back of my camera. It's a postage stamp image, and it lasted for 10 seconds, and then it disappeared. Then I would recharge it again, look at it again. And I came up with this. And I went up to this TV screen. I said, this is what I'm talking about. And they said, oh, why didn't you say so? And it went on to a final drawing, which was, fine enough. But talking about it doesn't do the job. You have to draw it out. This is my sketchbook. This is my design book. I have many of these. They're all at the Library of Congress these days. And in them, I do my clocking in and clocking out timesheet on the left, little sketches on the right, calendars of where I'm supposed to be next month. And then I do little sketches, like little storyboards to tell me what I might propose to them as good views of this project. Storyboards are great. This is a set of 4 boards that basically tell you the story of the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's great. You don't need anything else to understand what's going on with the movie. That's what I did consistently with clients, to give them storyboards that tell just a little bit of the story of what's going on. This isn't the grand palais entrance staircase. It's just a little snippet of time for something part of the project that is significant. it nails the idea down in your head. It questions how do you build this. If you don't do anything like this again, it's not necessarily going to happen. When you draw it, it's a foothold in reality. I don't know quite what I was doing here. It was lights that were posing as bamboo. The moire patterns would have been a great idea. And having drawn it, I can forget about it and go on to the next idea. Tom Leader Studio had me go to Italy to do a set of renderings. Again, a little small moment of how people might access a Roman ruin. Again, a walk in the park at the archaeological site is all I needed to talk about. Again, Yellowstone, just, what's it like to listen to a ranger, give the lecture? There's stones, there are people gathered, maybe people are bringing their folding chairs, all good. And similarly, I don't know quite what, the architect had not been picked yet, but I filled in the blank as to what it might be. This is a drawing, fairly small, again, sort of a throwaway part of a project. Look at this. This is how it started. You start small, you start tiny. That way you can get the proportions of the lamppost and the distance. You don't have to worry about whether there's French provincial or screaming modern lampposts. You just know that for compositional sake, you want some lampposts there. And at such a small scale, all those compositional elements are really easy to get together in your drawing. I've done an awful lot of work for Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, primarily their urban design and planning department. This is Las Vegas in Macau that Skidmore did the master plan for. More likely, I'm doing things for Skidmore that are more like altruistic. China has some real environmental problems. China has gone to Skidmore repeatedly to say, how do we get environmentally more conscious as a culture? And I kind of feel like I'm a missionary in this kind of regard. This is Wuhan. As you can see, the buildings are not articulated. They wanted me to show how the people of Wuhan might enjoy a revitalized historic district, or enjoy the fireworks, or in Beijing Theater District, enjoy the opening of a show. This is kind of the process. This is an old set of drawings. This was the computer model. So when you guys are working with computer models, when you get digitized enough to start playing with shapes in your project, you can overlay them with your own analog drawings. And from that, you can get more and more delineated. I get to a black and white state, and then I color it. That last place, and this place is called Docking. It's 300 miles north of North Korea. The skaters are from San Francisco. Because I use a lot of photographic imagery to make my people and the situations credible. I would recommend that you take pictures of each other or people on the street, as long as it's appropriate, and use them in your work. So catch the photographer. There he is now in the drawing. I took photographs of cherry blossoms. Here's an issue. Copyrights are sacred. I would take a photograph and reverse it so that the people are not quite based on the photographs. And this is Foshan. This is Peter Walker. Here's a set of drawings that I've done for him. This is Jefferson National Expansion Memorial competition. We lost. Same competition as that bad drawing with a lady hovering over the Mississippi was in, and I'm not sure if they won or not. This is Dwight D. Eisenhower Memorial competition that I really loved. And a little throwaway snippet of what lighting would be like with glass encased pools. And North Carolina Museum of Art, little rooms, Pete said. He wanted little rooms. And this is Barangaroo, a huge development in Sydney, Australia. This guy is on a hillside that is directly over a 14-level parking garage. This was Pete at his best. And the idea was just to show that the landscaping on top of the parking garage could be as natural as you would care to see. Pete competed for the Lafayette Square at the White House competition. So I gave Pete two options, option A or B, and he picked A. It's a little bigger, so I think I was pushing the decision-making process. But these sketches just took, I don't know, 15 seconds to do, put it under Pete's nose, and he said, do that. So a little drawing can be very powerful. This is based on the photographs I took. The White House was obscured by a tree that I left out in the drawing, but I didn't know what the White House really looks like in perspective. So I realized I got a source in my wallet, and through perspective alteration, I got a complete White House. Use what you got, and your sources may come from the unexpected. This is a process of setting it up, beginning to define it, and that was the final. He wanted me to do little sketches, so I did this sketch. Basically, this was the sketch. The copy is terrible. I left Pete's stuff there vaguely, but really concentrated on the surrounding and added that later. Metaphor. A figure of speech in which a term or phrase is applied to something to which it's not literally applicable in order to suggest a resemblance. So this is a metaphor. It's Savannah Street work, orange paint in water, or it's a koi pond. These are portholes or a set of eyes looking at you. That cloud looks a lot like Andrew Jackson on a horse in New Orleans. These are metaphors. And this kid is sticking her hand into a metaphor. Tadeo Ando said his building was going to be like a swan on the water. And that metaphor guided him to make all the right architectural design decisions. So coming to the end, I was asked by Roma Design Group to be part of the team to enter the competition for the Martin Luther King Memorial. The first thing I did was do the line between the Lincoln and the Jefferson memorials, the crescent and the street grid. This is what we worked with. This was for my own purposes. And I started wondering about what spring would be like and what kind of planting it would be, and how it would look. This is how it would look driving up Independence Avenue. You know, these are goofy little sketches that got the idea out of my head and onto paper, where you know, the team would like it or not, or you know, and then it is a design exercise that's over with. What does it look like at night? Well, I just did a little drawing. The crescent closer up, what does it look like at night? A little drawing gave me indications that something is going to really work beautifully or not at all very well. They came across a metaphor. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. This organized the crescent, gave life to everything about how we from that point on went forward. So I started doing little drawings, you know, dogwood noted in the lower left-hand corner. You know, will there be dogwoods? I don't know. This is a design sketch. This is kind of what we came up with. We won the competition. And then afterwards, then we started developing it further. The recall that you saw in St. Francis in Ecstasy's Foot, I kind of remembered that the mountain might want to take on the shape of the Jefferson Memorial that we were going to be looking through the mountain at. And that's kind of how it ended up. There was a time when we did a double level crescent with these little niches off to the side. The design notions in my sketchbook were like, what's the niche going to look like? Is it stone? Is it polished? We don't know. What's going on inside? The idea was to call into mind the heroes of the civil rights movement. So one idea was Rosa Parks' bus seat in stone. I don't know, that's a goofy idea, but why not? Viola Liuzzu's front seat in her car where she was shot in Alabama. Maybe the folding chairs in bronze or stone representing the kids that were killed in Birmingham. This was a little you know, further iteration. This is kind of how that ended up as an idea, which ultimately got squelched. This guy is, if he wasn't there, you really would not necessarily know that this is repeated. So it was really interesting on my part to make sure that something, these people could be related to that guy, to get a sense of the scale, which and the arrangement, which was not really particularly easy to understand otherwise. This was an early plan by the team when I got involved. There was a stone, and I'll show you the next iterations of the stone. Little sketches of what kind of stone is it? Is it a monument? Is it a Noguchi free-formed stone? Like, what is it? We came to this conclusion that Martin Luther King was going to be the stone of hope carved out of the mountain of despair, but we really didn't know what he looked like. He was going to be facing the Jefferson Memorial. And I did studies like King inscribed on the side of the stone. I don't think so. more proactive here, facing the Jefferson Memorial. Too big, I don't know. And I looked for photographs of King being fingerprinted in Montgomery. There was just not a good image for King, but Bob Fitch, photographer from the civil rights movement from California, took this wonderful photograph. And I said, bingo, this is the King that ought to be represented in some fashion. So I used the image. I traced over it as if he was not a real person in a photograph, but carved out of stone. So it was kind of an interesting thing to draw from another room in a way. I flipped the image and gave him a little bit of scale. And this is the final drawing. And Helene Villette did this wonderful photograph, and that's kind of how it ended up. A guy was doing a drawing there. Next to him was a 12-year-old talking to his dad, and the kid said, I don't know what this means. What is this? And the father said, well, that's the stone of hope. King is the stone of hope carved out of the mountain of despair. And he said, oh, I get it. So it's the power of metaphor in whatever you design. You don't have to start out with one, but incorporate meaning into your design. It should not necessarily be an abstraction. Last series, World Trade Center, Pete Walker was one of the people selected by Michael Arad, the architect who won the competition. The judges said, this is a brilliant idea, but your plaza is clean. There's no articulation of the plaza. Here are 5 landscape architects to choose from, pick one. And so Michael picked Peter. This is a rendering based on that model. This is his partie. And he had a photograph of a 18th century wood interior. And he said, I really want the trees to remind me of this passageway. And so I did a sketch, tiny, and he said, yeah, that's the one. I constructed it, embellished, and Pete said, let's do this 4 times. Once for summer, fall, winter, and spring. And the last couple here are an open space used unorganized, just a lovely space. And again, as the site of a gathering. And at night. And that is the end. So thank you for putting up with my hemming and hawing, but there's a lot of information for me to get out to you. It's, as an artist, nothing is always completely fully formed, but I think this is what I meant to say, and I have questions to answer. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris.
Sure.
The time is now 6:05, so we've got about 25 minutes to ask Chris the questions you all have been putting in the Q&A section. So please feel free to keep adding questions to the Q&A section, and we will try to get through as many of them as we can. So I'm going to pass things over to Catherine, and she's going to be asking the questions tonight.
Okay, so our first question is, who do you consider the most influential artist of your career?
Oh, within my career, gosh,
Or even outside of your career.
Oh gosh.
Or both.
Well, you know, I'm kind of a classicist. Michelangelo, certainly Da Vinci, more modern, Degas, Amish Kapoor, the Indian sculptor. I just love his stuff. Um, those are the ones that come to mind.
Okay, those are cool. What do you think hand drawn or oops, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me start over. How do you think hand drawing will evolve in the ever digitized world?
I don't think it'll ever leave. Pixar does digital movies, but all of them start out with hand-drawn storyboards and thousands of drawings, because at the beginning, there's nothing to digitize, really. And I don't think the analog point of view will ever go away. It'll go out of fashion, but there will always be a place for hand drawing. Certainly in the inception of an idea, again, there's nothing to digitize. It's thin air. So you need to do a mark on a page, and then do another mark, and then do a perpendicular mark to begin to develop the space. And like I did with Skidmore, they would give me computer models of the landscape and where the buildings would land on the landscape, but that's not enough. If they follow that to its complete ending, it's going to be a photorealistic image of something that really hasn't been designed yet, which is really goofy. Somebody said, Chris, we know that we wanted you to do this drawing for this church, but we went for a computer model and everybody hated it. And now can you go back and do us a hand-drawn, aspirational, what if kind of drawing for the church? And I said, first of all, I was offended, but I said, I'm sorry, the cat is out of the bag. They've developed a digital understanding of this thing that really was too underdeveloped to begin with. I should have done my drawing first, and then they should have come with a digitally based image. So hand drawing is always best right now in the conceptual world, where I like to be. I don't want to worry about mullions and how thick they are, how wide a sidewalk is. The technical stuff can wait, but in the early stages, hand drawing is unmatched and should always be.
Okay. What is the hardest thing you've ever drawn?
Dang. Oh, let me think about this one. One of the hardest things, that photograph from Pete Walker's competition entry for the Dwight D. Eisenhower thing, they were glass pools, clear water with glass walls, and there was nothing I could kind of look to sort of give me some guidance. So the idea of glass walled pools, one on top of the next, reflecting electric light, was pretty difficult. But it looked credible, and all it takes is just a little gumption. Nothing's impossible.
Okay. Sorry, I have to read some of these before I read them out loud. Do you like abstract drawings, or do you make abstract drawings at all? Or what are your thoughts on abstract?
I love abstract drawings to an extent, as long as I can see patterns. And again, this sort of upside down image where, a realistic drawing, if you turn it upside down, has a form or not. So I kind of look at abstract drawings upside down, and just to see them objectively. But there's nothing like an Edward Hopper sketch. It's real, it's spare, it tells me that I'm someplace. And, you know, I'm in the business of creating spaces or helping people visualize spaces. So abstraction is wonderful. I like Paul Klee a lot, but I'm sort of in the representational camp.
Okay, our next question is, what do you do if you get stuck on a design or drawing? Like if you have a mental block.
Oh gosh, that happened an awful lot. I get up, put the pencil down, and leave the room. You know, I can take a walk for 20 minutes and come back, and it'll look a little bit different. And the environment that I've just walked through for those 20 minutes just kind of gets me snapped out of it. So that's the quickest way to do to get myself out of that kind of situation.
What's your advice for people who are struggling to learn how to draw?
Just do it. Just do it. Do not think that you need to create the masterpiece right away. Start with little things that you know, like your cat or a table. Give yourself cut yourself some slack. It's not going to be a great drawing, but I'll tell you, when I see somebody taking a drawing and crunching it up, I lunge, I grab it and say, don't. Wait 3 days and look at it again. And you will be surprised at how much better it looks like then as it does right in front of you as you're about to scrunch it up. We always have this thinking of that we need to capture the magic moment or perfectly capture that thing, and you'll never quite get it. Maybe it's the spirit that you're after, but you may not be happy with it. So just give it 2 or 3 days and look at it again.
Okay, kind of a follow-up. Yeah, I know I'm one that kind of struggles with perfection, and I'll sit there and go crumple it up, and that's really good advice. But a follow-up question to that is, how can we inspire more people to draw instead of crumpling that piece of paper up and just throwing it away, or even just picking up a pencil and going with it?
Oh gosh, we're all kind of rushing against a tide that's going in the opposite direction. You know, it's easy to take a picture of it. It's easy to think that you know what you're talking about when you're just talking about it. I just doing what I'm doing now, which is to encourage people to get over yourselves and just draw. Just give, particularly, if you're on a project, you've got maybe a rudimentary site plan. Imagine yourself walking through the site and do a little storyboard of this part that you like and that part that you're not so sure about. But do a tour of your project in storyboard form. But yeah, you can't really, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You just need to encourage them as a teacher or as your classmate to, let's go out for a sketch tour. Let's get crazy and have a drink and do 4 drawings in 15 minutes and see what you come up with. Make it fun. But I think the first thing is just don't give yourself the idea that it's going to fail, that it has to be perfect. So just encourage yourself and others. I guess that's it.
Well, that's really good advice. Kind of another follow-up question to that same topic. Yeah, sorry, I'm just
No, keep going.
grilling you tonight. But how do you figure out what to include in a drawing and what to leave out in a drawing?
Well, if I'm supposed to do a drawing of a park from this general area, I want to include the most important part of it. I'm not going to be doing a universal expression of the 360-degree radius. I know, and architects say, well, can't you expand the drawing to include that over there? And that it ends up in that kind of perverse cinerama distortion of space. But I will go, once I know that that's generally the view I'm gonna focus on, I'll do a drawing that's 1 by 3 inches big. And there's not enough room to do the horse barn or the bell tower. They can be in there, but um, your view is fairly discrete. And if you do it small, it will sort itself out. The important pieces of what you're focused in on will be there. And if odd secondary or tertiary issues kind of show up, it's just a little small drawing, do another one and get rid of that. So you focus on what's important, and the size of the initial study is perfect. I used to work 18 by 24 inches, and it's crazy. It's real crazy. My finished drawings are 5 by 7 at the most, because you can in these in these early phases of looking at a master plan. You don't, if you do it this big, you need to start worrying about the mullions or the style of the lamppost. But small is better. Here, that's it.
Okay. How many sketchbooks do you go through in a year?
I kind of retired. I'm still working. I'd say 1 a year, and that's not many. I do a lot of photography for photo sources, and I think 1 a year.
Okay. This might be a taboo question because there's a
Okay.
little note by it, but are you a fan of animation?
Yeah. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it,
Okay.
but Pixar stuff is fabulous, and there's some alternative animation styles that I find are really interesting. But yeah, I love animation. I'd watch an animated movie as easily as a live action movie, as long as they were good. But yeah, that's beyond me. I couldn't do it.
Okay. Do you have any COVID-19 related sketches?
Yeah. The guy who was, waiting out his 15-minute situation. I'm doing a series. That's a person waiting in COVID vaccine room. I've done tents where people drive by to get their shots or to get tested. The AstroTurf drawings, that's expressly COVID related, because nobody in their right mind would do that. The whole idea of AstroTurf, I love it, but I would never imagine it as the carpet for my outdoor dining experience. And that's a COVID thing. Yeah, as a subject, yeah, it's as interesting as anything, outside of architecture and landscape.
Okay. Kind of a follow-up question, because I would expect you've also been doing a lot of drawing like the rest of us during quarantine. But what goes through your mind when you are drawing for yourself? Like just you're sitting having a cup of coffee, like just
You know,
drawing.
um, what goes through my mind? I'm totally focused on what I'm looking at. And if I tell myself, Chris, you're going to do a drawing of a refrigerator, um, I will, I may or may not give myself a time limit, but it's kind of weird. It's sort of meditative. I'm kind of lose track of time, and it's pretty clear that when it's done, it's done. But when I'm really focused in on that refrigerator, um, I'm really interested in the sheen of the brushed chrome, and what does that mean? And it looks like a shape of who knows what, but I'll do that shape. And if you're that sucked into out of your body experience, you lose track of time. And so, yeah, I think that answers, or close to answers.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so kind of a longer question, but do you complete many finalized schematic and illustrative plan drawings, or do you find yourself working with mostly perspectives and drawings that immerse you within the design of your site?
I've rarely done illustrated site plans. And I can do them, but they're not as interesting. My shtick is to imagine that you're standing in a place that hasn't been built yet. And what does that feel like? What does it look like? And that also doesn't necessarily lend itself to the big move, monster main drawing. I'm more focused, I'm happier with doing a series of 5 to 8 drawings that show pieces of a larger project area. If they want me to do the main drawing or an aerial, I really try to talk my way out of it, because there are other people that do that better. Those are situations where, if it's that finalized, there's going to be digital information, and a computer model would be better for that. And my struggling to make it look computer-esque or realistic, I'm just really not interested in. So I'd like to stay to the storyboarding. And again, for you guys, think of 5 drawings or 8 drawings of your project at hand, as opposed to the one. Because if you think about 8, you're going to have to force yourself to move about your site. And there may be places where you don't really have a good idea, and maybe you should get one. So little storyboard views of your project are much better than a single grand hoo-ha drawing. So that's my thinking.
Okay, I know that one will help me. So thank you for whoever asked that question. But while we're on that, are you familiar with the idea of the sacred geometry, such as Fibonacci sequence and factuals? Sorry if I butchered that.
Fractals.
Fractals, yeah.
I'm fascinated by the ideas. The only kind of classic shape or formula that appeals to me is the golden rectangle. It's take a square and do a diagonal and then push it down, and that's perfect. It's a perfect shape. I do some of my drawings, if I can get away with it, with that shape. And when I'm doing modification to these computer models of a building, I'll keep that in mind. But anything more mathematical or really convoluted, I don't go beyond the golden rectangle.
Let's see. What drawings of yours do you value the most?
Oh gosh. You know, well, the ones that I had the best time doing, and that usually translates into better work. The drawings I did in New Zealand and New Orleans, I think were amongst my best. For some reason, I thought I needed to be kind of a reporter, a photojournalist. You know, they're clearly drawings, but you know, they're expressing an idea. I'm beginning to kind of lose you know, where this was going, but those drawings are amongst my favorites. The little drawing with the dictum of big water, you know, it's simple, it's direct, it gives me a notion of a beginning of an idea, and it was done very quickly, and just the, you know, the dynamics of doing that little drawing was wonderful.
Do you ever draw on a digital tablet, or are you more of a paper and pen person?
No digital tablets.
Okay.
No, you know, the whole idea of the iPad pen thing. Partly again, it's picking the materials that you find are sexy. Doing a stylus across a piece of glass, not my idea of a good time. But David Hockney has done a lot of wonderful paintings, drawings using digital tablets. Really beautiful stuff. But you know, I think I'm sort of a dinosaur. I'm going to sort of stay away from that. But a lot of it, again, is just the handling of it, and the whole idea that I can store it. You know, when it goes away in my mind, which is crazy. But you know, a piece of paper with a writing pen, that's my idea of a good time.
Okay. Let's see. Are there any books that have helped you get better at drawing?
Gosh.
Or have you always had this great ability?
I've always had this great ability.
Okay.
You know, I started around three years old, and I'm not an intellectual, and the theory of drawing, I've never really delved into. I'm sort of experiential, and books. You know, there was a guy named John Nagy who appeared on television in 1951 through 55, and I was just a kid, and he would have a television show called John Nagy Learn to Draw, and I got a John Nagy Learn to Draw set, and I still have it, and it was the idea of a Southern belle waving with a handkerchief at the dock. It starts out with a semicircle for her hoop skirt. And that's how at 5, I learned that there was some sort of method in forming the illusion of space and figures. But yeah, I'm not a good reader of theoretical work. That's kind of why I was really kind of fumbling through the first half of this, because these are things that I need to know, but it's hard to get them out to myself as well as to you. When I'm talking about a drawing, I know exactly what to say, but a theoretician, I am not.
Okay, I definitely feel with that last statement. oh, excuse me. Okay. What are what are you working on now, and what do you find exciting about it?
Oh, I just finished a series of renderings for Skidmore, a project in Vietnam, the mountains above Hanoi. I've been, I'm kind of out of retirement, and getting back into the saddle was a lot of fun. What interests me now is I'm keeping my eye out on COVID experiences. It's kind of hard to draw physical spaces that sort of say, this is a COVID era, but I'm keeping my eye out. And Savannah, where I live, is famous for just being gosh awful beautiful. But I'm all into finding things like that cemetery with the the digging for the PVC pipes around somebody's grave. The grave I could do a drawing of, but that situation where Savannah is in transition, and as I said before, look for things in transition because they'll never be that way again. Savannah in that regard is kind of what I'm keeping my eye out for right now.
That's really cool. We have time for one last question, and it's kind of a wrap-up question, but when you're not drawing for work professionally, how often do you just take a sketchbook out and draw, or just take a leisurely walk?
I prefer to take a leisurely walk, and if I see something worth sketching that I want to make a note of, I'll go back and get the sketchbook later. I keep my sketchbook in my backpack whenever possible, and I've taken it on a couple of trips where I've done no sketching. I was working for 42 years and done countless drawings, and I kind of allowed myself in the last few years to put the pencil down, which is just fine. So walking in order to see stuff, in order to come back later and draw it is my speed right now.
Okay, that's cool. Well, thank you for answering all of our questions, and thank you to all the participants who provided the questions. I will now hand this off to Professor Curl. Excuse me.
Thank
Thanks,
you. I think Gibson has one more question for you. Gibson, are you there?
Yes, I am. And I wanted to save it just in case you're running out of time. What advice do you have about someone who wants to make storyboards for their designs?
Oh, well, yeah, do it. That presumes a design which would take multiple views. And like I said, one or two great drawings of the best side of your project area is all very nice, but I'd rather see 12 little vignettes that tell the viewer, primarily you the designer yourself, what you're experiencing, and then you can show them to other people. But multiple views can be done in much less time than a grand drawing. And the plus is that you have to move around your space. Landscape architects are all about space, sometimes small areas, some often quite large areas. So yeah, do storyboards of your project area. And again, if you're doing them all over here on the east side of your project area and not on the west side, it's a blank, ask yourself why that is. Are you not interested over there, and why aren't you interested? And those are questions that storyboarding will raise for you, the designer. And once you've made that sort of understanding of what's going on, then you'll have to deal more broadly with your design. So again, nothing much to say about storyboards, but do them. Alfred Hitchcock was my favorite director. One of the greatest films in the last 50, 20, 100 years almost. He would never shoot a scene without it being represented by a storyboard. So in The Birds, when Tippi Hedren is forced into a phone booth by the birds swirling around, Hitchcock has an impossible shot from right above her head. So you see the top of her head and she's going 4 ways trying to get out. And I will tell you that there's a drawing there, that because he would not have shot that scene that way without a storyboard. And that's a really interesting scene because, you know, you look through phone booths, they're glass, they're fairly transparent. But if you're shooting really down, you really get a sense it's 2-3 feet square, and you're trapped. So that's what he did to convey the trappedness, and that came from a storyboard. So yeah, do as many boards. If you did storyboards, 50 of them, and said this is my project, I don't think they should give you any grief, because you have looked 50 times from various angles at your project. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thank you. I'm even more excited to try that.
Oh yeah, it's fun, and again, it's quick. And if you don't like it, change it. So yeah, it's a wonderful way to work.
Thank you, Chris. Your work is so inspirational. It's been great. I've worked with you for, I don't know, 15 years or more, even more than that, going back to PWP time. And so it's been such a wonderful pleasure to bring you here and to share you with our students and many others. And you're inspiring to my kids too. So I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I share this with my students all the time, but my son has literally been on the floor with the pile of markers. I have to go through, I just got a new package of the printer paper, and I just counted, but he literally just did all of these drawings tonight.
Wow.
Like, during your talk. There's 30 of them. There's lots, and he likes fish, and lots and lots of we're talking about kelp today, so it's crazy. And my daughter also, you know, you were talking about the rendering. Where's her drawing? And she was like, how does he shadow? How does he do this? But this was her drawing that came out of your work.
Wow,
that you were talking about tonight. So she was sitting here with me on my lap, and she was sketching, and there was some others, and she was just really, we're all having a ball. So I'm grateful and thankful.
Well, I'm flattered, and the pleasure's all mine. This has been a lot of fun, really. Yeah, and be a good mom and keep those.
I know.
Don't let them wander away.
I have boxes.
Good.
Well, thank you, and thank you all. This has been a great summary. It's hard to believe that the LA lecture series is over, but thank you so much for being with us, Chris, and thank you all, the students that have been helping. Thank you for all of the attendees. We have a wide range tonight, even from Australia and Tokyo. It's been awesome to see many from all over the world coming in tonight.
I'm glad they were watching. And hi, I know who you are. Hi.
Well, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Till next time.
Yes.
And
hopefully it's in person next time.
Yeah, and keep drawing in the meantime. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.